Can leftists be annoying on the internet or in general? What's happening, everybody? We have a brand new article. Why I Left the Left. By Kasparian. It's called Independent and Unaligned. I know a lot of people were talking about this like it was a rumor. It was destined to happen. It was only a matter of time. You know, yet another TYT person leaving the left. Because, of course, there has been Jimmy Dore. There's been the late, great Dave Rubin. And others, not as memorable as those two. But Dave Rubin, if you didn't know, he worked on TYT for a while. And then eventually he asked for lots of money. And TYT at the time was just a small independent, YouTube channel. So they didn't have the monies to pay Dave Rubin. And so Dave Rubin decided, well, why don't I just change all my beliefs and go right wing, and then I'll get lots of monies. And so that worked out for Dave. Jimmy Dore has always been really conspiracy brained. And I think he just kept on spiraling. And then he realized, because again, there was more money available to him to kind of talk about anti-vax shit. That was a very lucrative thing, especially post-COVID. That stuff was doing fireworks. I guess he saw what it did to Russell Brand's online career, and so he's like, I'm in the anti-vax crowd now. So Jimmy Dore went down that pipeline and did that quite a bit, and a lot of people were saying, well, Kasparian has seemed to be kind of pivoting to the right. She got really, really upset at the trans community for asking her to please simply include trans people in the discussion when talking about, the people who can give birth. That includes trans men, non-binary people who give birth, etc. Simply adding that doesn't take away from the fact that the majority of people who do give birth are cis women, and that autonomy when it comes to reproductive rights does concern primarily cis women, absolutely, and that we should always be, again, if we are people who are going to be advocating on the behalf of people who are trying to have their rights taken away, such as women, by right-wingers who want to control their bodies. JD Vance, looking at you, want to track those menstrual cycles, shit like that. Terrible people, evil ghouls. Women should have bodily autonomy, and they should have a right to make decisions about their own reproductive health care without having creepy old guys want to get involved. But anyways, I say that combined with a lot of the kind of propaganda pro-crime stuff, had a lot of people saying that Anna seems to really be pivoting more and more to the right, and so does a lot of TYT's coverage, even when they're corrected, by the way, because there's a lot of talk about, hey, by the way, there's a really scary story. I know a lot of you and a lot of people on the left are going to talk about things like abolition and defund the police, but they don't realize that there is someone who is stabbing grandmothers or punching old people in the face or defecating on the street. And are you okay with that? Do you think that's all right? Are you okay with people who are punching people on the street and punching old ladies and defecating and stuff like that? And no one's on the other side of that. No one's like, well, yes, I really want Venezuelan immigrants to come to the United States and commit mass acts of violence. That's what I'm all about. That's leftism. But it's more that, like, by concentrating on these stories in the same way that Fox News does, it makes a lot of people very scared because they start to think that these individual cases are indicative of a broader problem, and then they're going to want to do things like really support police and police budgets and increasing police budgets and militarizing the police and increasing mass incarceration and the private prison industrial complex. All of that stuff will come along with people constantly being scared of these individual horrifying stories that, again, I don't think anyone's on the other side of it. Numerous cases of people correcting them, but they don't really want to be corrected on these kind of issues, or trying to point out, hey, overall crime is down, or in this specific area where you're talking about this, violent crime is down, or shoplifting. Who can forget shoplifting? That was such a huge one, where there was all these cases of massive brands being specifically targeted by shoplifters, and no one's talking about it, and the left have just let this go to complete chaos, and they're completely fine with jokerification and people breaking into stores and stealing things, and all these stores have to close down now. It's really sad. Like, a lot of Target stores have to close down. But again, it's one of those things that when you look into the data, it turns out that a lot of the stores that were closing down specifically in areas where they weren't receiving as much shoplifting as, say, their counterparts in much more rich areas. In fact, there was a lot of more impoverished areas that didn't have as much shoplifting, but that's where the stores were closing down. So that doesn't really, again, it's one of those things when you look at the data, when you reflect on this, because if you want to actually use your platform to spread a message, to get people informed on issues, then you should probably look specifically into why is it that we concentrate so much on this one specific example of an immigrant or an illegal immigrant or someone from Venezuela doing something horrifying, because no one's on the other side of that. No one sees the story where there's a Venezuelan migrant or immigrant who came over and killed someone and thinks, oh, well, yeah, no, but we have to defend their act, what they did, because otherwise we're not true leftists. It's like, is this a problem that is so pervasive that it's actually destabilizing American society in the way that it's presented and makes us all really, really scared? That kind of stuff. So this goes on, and we finally got to this article that came out September 30th, 2024. Independent and unaligned. You're right, I've changed. After Trump came onto the political scene, and especially after he was elected into 2016, the us versus them mentality immediately took shape. Anyone who refused to resist Trump was seen as a threat to the country, and I was fully on board with the mindset. It felt righteous at first, but eventually the tactics deployed to fight Trump became repetitive, boring, and ultimately fruitless. Polling shows that he has increased his support amongst Black and Latino voters, despite wall-to-wall coverage of his unsavory, racist, or bigoted remarks. Several years of media raising the alarm over Trump's threat to democracy has only resulted in a tight presidential race between himself and Kamala Harris. I can't help but acknowledge that the only thing that was accomplished by resisting Trump was less understanding and more division amongst Americans. I personally became reluctant to challenge my side or engage with voters who disagreed with me. In turn, I became less knowledgeable about the people in the world around me. I saw Republican voters as an evil monolith, and that was a big mistake. When I was sexually assaulted by a homeless man in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog. That horrible experience alone didn't change me politically, but the treatment I received from the far left and some progressives after sharing the story did. I was told by publicly sharing what had happened to me, I was stigmatizing my unhoused neighbors. Others accused me of feeding into racist tropes because they assumed that my attacker was Black, but I never even disclosed that man's race. He was white. Not only did I suddenly see the flawed thinking of some on the left, I also witnessed their cruelty and hypocrisy in real time. These terrible traits that I'd associated solely with my political opponents were obviously not exclusive to their tribe. I was stupid for ever thinking that was the case. That doesn't mean everyone on the left thinks or behaves in this way, and the small groups of lunatics do far from it, but it does mean that there are factions and flaws on both sides of the aisle, and that no one has a monopoly on truth. I mean, this is a very brave paragraph. Anyone who was doing that, I don't know who was. I don't remember seeing, a measured response speaking specifically about how no one can speak about their sexual assault. Otherwise, they vilify people who are unhoused. If you were doing that, shame on you. That's disgusting. I don't think anyone should turn someone's story of sexual assault into their own opportunity to politically canvass for something that they believe in. Abolitionists are not saying that rapists should run free, or that they should own the night, or they should control the streets. What they're saying is that, first off, people who do commit a sexual assault and violent crimes, such as, violence towards women and stuff like that, a lot of them do already get away with it under the current system. And the current system, operating as it is how we should judge any system, right? Like, how do you judge a system? By its results. So there's the system operating as it is disproportionately, and I would suggest racistly, if that is a way of expressing it, but disproportionately incarcerates Black people, disproportionately incarcerates Indigenous people. That's really striking in Canada. You'll see monstrously high incarceration rates for Indigenous people by ratio of the population, where they make up 5% of the population, but can make up 32% of people within the prison system. The same thing can apply to Black people, making up 13% of the population in the United States, but being so heavily represented within the carceral state. Now, why is that? If you were to look at this, and if you want to analyze society and how do we get it, the goal of an abolitionist is to say that we want less people in prison, we want less people committing crime, we want less people committing violent crime, we want less people committing sexual crimes, we want less people committing these crimes. So why not address the root causes of a lot of this, whether that be poverty, whether that be access or opportunity, whether that be poor education systems, whatever is causing overrepresentation in certain demographics to appear within the criminal justice system, and not to mention the racialization of the police force, how they do see people as perhaps more inherently threatening if they happen to have Black skin, things like that, to analyze that and to then work towards the goals of reducing the amount of people who are going to jail. As in, I want less people in jail because I want them committing less crimes, or I want them committing less violence, or I want them robbing less, or I want them doing less. That is the goal of abolitionists. It's not to just let the criminals run the streets. It's not to turn your city into Gotham hoping for a Batman. Nothing like that. That doesn't mean everyone on the left thinks or behaves in this way. The small group of lunatics do, far from it. But it does mean that there are factions and flaws on both sides of the aisle, and no one has a monopoly on truth. And then there was this insane reaction to one of my tweets in March 2023. The tweet, "I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit." And yeah, this was, I think, the moment where, myself and a lot of other people speaking out against this is what created a rift between a lot of the left or leftist media, progressive media, and TYT. There was, of course, Benny leaving TYT as a result of their treatment on this topic. There was the TYT mods. A huge amount of the mods who worked for TYT quit after their handling of this topic. Many people in very good faith, David Dole, who considered Anna, and Cenk to be colleagues and friends. Myself, I'd interviewed Anna on my show. I'd been on TYT numerous times for the Power Panel. I also didn't come out this and at any point called them names. I didn't say Anna's a Nazi, Cenk's a Nazi, TYT are Nazis and fascists. Because she made this tweet, she's just as bad as Steven Crowder. Instantly, all of you are the worst, the worst people. You're all transphobes, you're all queerphobes, you're all bigots. None of that. Every single person was, again, very on either Twitter or in their YouTube videos trying to, in the good faith way, in the best of ways. As someone I know who's done a lot of important work, I'm not trying to discount all of the work that TYT has done in the past, trying to, again, create alternatives to the duopoly of the American electoral system by creating Justice Democrats and stuff like that. Certainly, with all that in mind, this is not on its surface a far-right talking point in any way, shape, or form, but it helps give ammunition to people who want to target trans people. I pulled up that old clip of Anna criticizing Republicans for the exact same thing, where saying that, yeah, inclusive language, saying women, comma, and people who give birth are affected by this legislation doesn't erase women, is not derogatory towards women. Inclusive language is a good thing. It doesn't even have to be in every single sentence ever said about this issue. Oftentimes when I'm talking about abortion rights, I'm specifically talking about cis women, but I include, this also does affect people such as trans men, non-binary people who give birth, or other people affected by this who are not just women as well, who are affected by having, again, their rights taken away. But when it's framed this way, yeah, it's done so. Again, the only person who can benefit from this is right-wingers who try to make the left or activists or LGBTQ plus activists or trans people seem as if they've gone too far. They're asking for too much. Now they want to take away the very word woman and erase it. And this was like, it just went on for so long where it's just like, oh, by the way, yeah, so I just want to show that this is actually that. Here's some stats, here's some facts, blah, blah, blah. And then immediately it was met with, oh, yeah, okay, so the purity testing left, they think they're so pure. And then, yeah, I'll say name, Lance from the Serfs. You know him with his signature phrase, I am the one pure leftist, trying to correct everyone who doesn't get it. No, more just like this is something that clearly I know you know. I know you appreciate and understand because you've done a call out of it when Republicans did it.
And he, along with other Republican lawmakers, deserve to be dismissed on this issue because it's bad faith. They know there's a difference between gender and sex. They know that it is very possible for someone to be born a biological male or a biological female, but in terms of gender, identify differently as a male or non-binary, but they still have the biological capacity, the physical capacity to get pregnant. So that's why the language, the rhetoric is inclusive to include those people. It is not a big deal, but they make it a big deal. They manufacture it into a big deal because that's all Republicans are. That's
preference. Instead, many self-described socialists took it upon themselves to profit from this conflict by publicly attacking me with monetized videos. So I'm among the people who replied to this post with just information, none of it aggressive. You can go back on Twitter. None of it being like, you're a Nazi. Nazi. Well, you would go full Nazi. Look at you Nazis, Nazi now. Yeah, fucking Third Reich much? No, it was just like, oh, well, this isn't actually an issue where people are saying that women can't be referred to as women anymore, especially not within the activist community. And I can say as someone who's within the LGBTQ plus community, there's not a call for women to be erased in their entirety or to take their agency. If anything, we're fighting for women to have more autonomy, more agency, that kind of stuff. A smaller leftist YouTuber, Show, put out 5 separate videos skewering me about this tweet, while conveniently erasing the advocacy I had done on the behalf of the transgender community throughout my career. This, I think, is my favorite sentence of the whole thing. And is this the Vanguard? Is this a reference to the Vanguard? I'm not totally sure who the smaller leftist YouTuber who put out 5 separate videos is, but a smaller leftist YouTube show put out 5 separate videos skewering me about the tweet, while conveniently erasing the advocacy I had done on behalf of the trans community throughout my career. And this goes back to the whole thing, and I say this as a cis person, that we're not supposed to be dictating the terms of the people we oppress. And I know that sounds like me virtue signaling or being the one pure leftist or blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm not, if there's a group that is trying to restrict another group's healthcare, access, all that kind of stuff, and they're saying that within that group that they, in part of their own liberation movement, are asking cis folk, allies, etc., to please, if you can you add inclusive language when discussing this topic, because there are people within the trans community who are also affected directly. They might not be cis women, they can be trans men, they can be non-binary people who give birth, but they are also going to have their rights taken away from them and restricted, so they would like to be included in the conversation when discussing bodily autonomy, especially in relation to people who can give birth. And again, it's not a hard ask. It's not like, oh, once again, you know, the radical trans agenda asking for so much. I can't believe the amount of things they're doing. And then to be like, well, I have been supporting the transgender community throughout my career, but then I was attacked by the so-called socialists. Tweets and trans suicide, which sadly was the most unhinged outcome of the debacle. TYT's volunteer YouTube chat moderators quit over the tweet, and someone reported me to Human Resources. An on-air trans contributor even resigned from the company after being urged by online mobs and leftist shows to do so. That's so unfair to Benny. Like, she left of her own accord because, yes, she was very, very upset at the way this was being treated within the company that she was occasionally producing content for. It wasn't like, she has made videos since that speak about, no, this wasn't because I got pressure from the woke mob, or the leftist mafia, or the whole bunch of purists who are just like, you have to quit. If you don't quit, you directly support this. Like, I still really like John. I think John produces awesome content. He has still worked for TYT despite all of these controversies that have been happening one after the other. And when he's doing his show, if he on his show specifically said something related to this, being like, hey, I think it's ridiculous that the trans community is asking us to remove the word woman and replace it with birthing person. I think that's condescending. Well, then I would criticize that take. But I understand that John, most likely, he's got a contract with TYT, he's got to fulfill that contract, he still works at the company. No one is saying that every single one of you has to quit every single time one of their other hosts is saying something that I find to be really, really fucked up. No, no one is asking for that. There's this idea that there's this consistent mob of woke Puritan gatekeepers who are always trying to push people into one direction or another. An on-air trans contributor, blah, blah, blah. Curious that not one of these shows hired her after she took their advice. Again, a profoundly fucked up thing to say. That, like, she had no agency. She was doing only what she was doing specifically because of woke mobs. And then those woke mobs told her to quit and then wouldn't even hire her. Yeah. How about that? Yeah, you got to be pure. You got to make TYT look bad. You got to do that. Do that now. You got to do that because that's what we're telling you to do. And then she does it. And then we're not even going to hire you on our shows. Yeah, we're not going to do that. You know, that's utterly absurd. It's ridiculous. Guests from all walks of life, engagement with me in the comment section for paid subscribers. The point of this new project is the pursuit of intellectual freedom and open-mindedness. I want to nurture curiosity without fear of offending the sensibilities of loyal partisans. I reject arguments about the evils of platforming people who are considered too naughty to converse with. I want to facilitate dialogue. I don't know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of tribal identity. I like that, by the way. It's leftists who are called these virtue signaling Puritans who make everyone conform to their beliefs, when this is what I keep seeing from every single content creator who pivots to the center. They try to make it sound so noble. It's like, well, I'm actually seeking truth and dialogue. I'm not seeking to silence and cancel anyone who has an opposing view to me. The leftists, they're a cult. Every single one of them, they don't have any of their own beliefs. They're told what they have to believe at any given time. When they step out of line, they're canceled by the mob. The mob cancels them on the social medias and stuff like that. And they're afraid. They're too afraid to have dialogue with anyone that might have an opposing view. And so that's why I have found ground in the sweet, juicy center. But no labels. Absolutely no labels. None whatsoever. It's also like, one part of this whole thing is that, like, can leftists be annoying on the internet or in general? Yes. Yes. Extremely so. Yeah, I deal with it all the time. They could be some of the most annoying people on the internet possible. Does that change my core beliefs, though? Like, all of a sudden, do I stop believing in, say, some form of civil rights or some form of activism or the, you know, liberating Palestine because people who are advocating on the behalf are suddenly rude to me, like, or are just mean, or are not accepting that I could get something wrong? Because I fuck up. I fuck up all the fucking time. You talk for hours into a microphone on the internet without any script or anything. You're going to say fucked up shit, and you will be factually incorrect, as I can often be as well. Well, there'll be people in my chat who'll come out and be like, Lance, that's not true. That law changed 2 years ago. You're wrong on this. And I'll be like, wait, what? Oh, shit. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you can have really interesting conversations with where you might fundamentally disagree on one thing or another, or how to enact that, or maybe it's just not realistic to think that this is a potential pathway forward and that the idealism of your objectives are not going to get results for the people who need it the most. And specifically, when I usually talk about that advocacy, I'm talking about Indigenous folk, which is why I'm not, completely opposed to the implementation of programs by the Liberals and the NDP that can expand, say, dental care to Indigenous communities, even if people say, well, yes, but we have to overthrow the government and we effectively have to liberate, every single Indigenous community that is being colonized by the settlers. We have to do that. And until we do that, then we have no ground to stand on. We're just working within the capitalist framework. Well, then I'm going to be someone who's like, yeah, but materially, that there's going to be tens of thousands of people, especially within impoverished Indigenous communities, who now have access to dental care where they wouldn't have access to it before. That to me is a net material benefit to those communities who need it right now. So I'm not completely going to just ignore all of electoral politics, which is, but these are healthy discussions. You can have very unhealthy discussions online where you might post something. You might be like, Trump sucks. And then it'll just fill up with, oh, what? So you support the neoliberal policies, the warmongering, the imperialism, the genocide of Palestinians? Good luck, fucking shitlib genocide supporter. Didn't know you'd fucking... And you're like, no. I just said Orange Man bad. I wasn't saying Brandon good. They weren't like in tandem simultaneously. And what's just filling up with so much nonsense right now? Boy, this is annoying. A lot of people being really annoying online when they're totally misinterpreting what I meant to say. This fucking sucks. I guess I gotta leave the left because I don't want the woke mob to come for me anymore. It just so frustrating. They called me mean names. They called me an imperialist, a colonizer, a settler. There's other people that all I said was Trump bad. That's all. But look at them. Look at them filling my replies. Shitlib, colonizer, imperialist, genocide supporter, blah, blah, blah. And it's again, like you can tell someone that you like pancakes on the internet, but they think you mean that you hate waffles, but you actually like waffles too, but that wasn't implied again. But yeah, it's... I keep hearing this. I keep hearing about this online, especially people, a lot of cis folks say this about like the trans agenda or the trans mob or the radical extremists online, trans people who are just demanding so much and they don't realize that they're alienating their allies along the way. Like, I agree with you on 90% of everything, and yet you come after me, someone, a cis person who has been advocating on your behalf for so long. I've been fighting for you. And now you've turned me away. Ew. Gross. I don't want to have to deal with these criticisms and all this, backpedaling and all this kind of stuff. I'm not issuing corrections. I'm not apologizing. I'm not doing any of that. Shame on you. And again, I have had a lot of times, and this is kind of typical of a cis person, where I've straight up fucked up. I've done a transphobia. I have posted something where someone has been like, "Oh, Lance, you can't say that. Oh, Lance, you can't do that meme. Oh, Lance, that's an inside communal joke that you're not allowed to reproduce as a cis person. Don't do that." Or just being factually incorrect or being and saying something where it's like, that's just, it's going to do more harm than good, Lance, if you put that out there because this and this and this. And again, it's always usually been done, I would say for the most part, with a lot of like kindness and respect and like, Lance, I know you're trying, but like most cis people, you're fucking up along the way. So just, learn from this. Please delete the tweet, or please apologize, or please just learn and tell the truth, which is this, which is actually this, which is the factually correct statement here, right? And yeah, there are times when it does feel shitty to be wrong, and it feels shitty to fuck up, and it feels shitty to have to turn to people who you're trying to help and have them tell you this ain't it, but this specifically ain't it, and then have to be like, okay, well, I'm sorry I fucked up, or I delete the tweet, or I do that. I get it, but it's never, and it's not because I'm a better person, but it's never suddenly fundamentally made me believe like, well, do I really want to advocate for trans rights when this is how I'm treated? When I'm someone who I think I'm doing good work, I'm fundraising, I'm constantly debating assholes, trying to like get people to see the light, and I'm doing this other shit, or I'm making videos and advocating for this, and this is how I'm treated. People being mean to me, calling me wrong, calling me a bigot, like that. Then it's not really, in my opinion, about civil rights. It's not about liberation or helping liberation movements, right? It's about who's nice to you online. And unfortunately, yeah, it is true. The doors are always wide open on the right. Every fucking right-wing pundit is just waiting for the opportunity to be like, we told you you were in a cult. Yeah, you were in a cult, those lefties.
We're not saying we're going to replace the word mother. And even the term birthing person or birthing people isn't even settled on. Personally, I use childbearer because, again, it's new language. It's going to be clumsy. The woman who tweeted that out, she should have been consistent throughout. But when new language starts, it's always going to be sounding clumsy. The right will never buy into it because they wouldn't no matter what. And the way to get people in the center and the left to actually buy into it is to use it and normalize it. Because we've been through these transformations in language before. We used to only ever say police men, and then it changed to women, police women. But then that was getting confusing because you didn't know which gender they were, you were misgendering, so it became police officer. So it's a matter of trying to find a balance of words that don't necessarily sound clumsy, something that we can all kind of come in on and agree with in the future. But since it is still newer terms, newer language coming up, there is no consensus yet on what those words should be.
The most important thing I think that we've established here is that people are not trying to apply it to all mothers. And because if that was the case, I think that would be deeply counterproductive. I'm just keeping it real in a political sense. And then there really isn't that much disagreement. Like if you say,
hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.